Functional Communication Training, also known as FCT. What is functional communication training? Functional communication training is used to replace a problem behavior with communication. This can be verbal communication, American Sign Language, or any other form of communication. Differential reinforcement is used. That means that only the alternative behavior is being reinforced while the problem behavior is being ignored. The client will learn over time that the communication is more effective than engaging in the problem behavior. Who can benefit from functional communication training? Our clients. This is typically used with children with autism spectrum disorders because of their inabilities and problems with communicating. It is also used with people with intellectual disability. However, it also benefits parent, teachers, and support staff that work with that client. It eases the client's frustration, but also eases the frustration of those that are trying to communicate with the client. Steps for implementation of functional communication training. Step 1. Identify the problem behavior. The problem behavior could be multiple behaviors that serve the same function. This could be aggressive behaviors, self-injurious behaviors, talking out of turn. A variety of things could be happening to serve the same function. For example, a child might tantrum one day to get attention, but then he might hit another student the next day, but they both have the same function of attention. The behavior also needs to be identified as one that will be decreased if the client has a better way to communicate their needs. This brings us to step 2. Conduct a functional behavior analysis. Correctly follow all the steps of implementing an FBA. That includes baseline data, ABC data, scatter plots, etc. This may involve a team of professionals. You may be asked to collect data or simply just observe. This training will be covered at another time. Step 3. Select an alternate behavior. It is important to make sure that this behavior is appropriate. It also must be easier to complete than the problem behavior, and the child should be physically capable of executing the behavior. For instance, if the child is nonverbal and unable to speak, we cannot expect him to vocally communicate his alternate behavior. In this case, we might be able to teach them to sign or use a PEC system. Step 4. Determine how the behavior will be reinforced. Start with a continuous schedule of reinforcement, and you prompt at the level that is necessary for the learner to man successfully. That means that you will reinforce every instance of the alternate behavior. As time progresses, you will thin the level of prompting until motivation alone prompts the behavior. You also thin the schedule of reinforcement over time. Never reinforce the problem behavior. This is very important. By reinforcing the problem behavior, you create a variable schedule of reinforcement, and that will only serve to reinforce the problem behavior. So be sure to never reinforce the problem behavior when completing functional communication training. Step 5. Collect and evaluate data. You have to determine the best way to collect data for the problem behavior. This is all going to be dependent on what behavior you are trying to eliminate and what behavior you are using to replace that behavior. After all the behavior is tracked, you will graph the data and monitor progress. So why use functional communication training? It is a highly effective and accepted intervention that has been in use for over 30 years. It helps to promote social interaction and helps to decrease problem behaviors.